Welcome to the Porch Podcast with your co-hosts JD Frieda and Jared Peterman. Let's get started.
Hello, today is April 10th, and you're listening to the Porch Podcast, where even zealous Wheeler can hit it 314 down the line. Welcome, everybody. I'm Jared Peterman, and I'm joined by co-host JD Frieda. And the Yankees are coming off their home opener where they beat the Tampa Bay Rays. So we're just going to talk about the home opener, some Gary Sanchez news, and just kind of give you some thoughts and analysis on the past week that has been Yankees baseball.
That's right. So as Jared said, the Yankees just came back home to the Bronx. They started their season off by a big win over the Tampa Bay Rays. Michael Pineda looked fantastic today, but we'll get into that. We'll get into the fifth rotational spot and who the Yankees chose. As Jared said, some Gary Sanchez injury news, some Greg Bird injury news, and a whole bunch more. So, Jared, would you like to start it off? What's the first point of contention in this young Yankees season?
Well, let's just stick with the home opener today. The Yankees came back after a 6-game road trip. And who else was on the mound but Big Mike Pineda, and he showed all of his stuff today. Taking a perfect game, I believe, into the 7th for about 6 2/3.
Right.
Before Longoria ripped a single down the line. But, Pineda looked very encouraging today. He didn't look that great in his first start in Tampa Bay. He got to face them again, and, he showed dominance out there.
He showed dominance out there, and, should I introduce it? It's our second iteration of the game we love to play every year with the Yankees is Mike Pineda good? The answer? Today he was. So that's the answer that we usually get. Sometimes he's shit, sometimes he's good. Today, he was fantastic, as Jared said, through 6 2/3 before Longoria ripped a double or a single down the line?
Oh, it was a double. It was a double, yeah.
Yeah, double down the line.
But yeah,
his stuff was working. He had 3 pitches working really well.
That was the big factor for him today. The changeup was a great compliment to the nasty slider and the fastball. And he pitched 7 2/3 innings. Girardi may have left him out there a little bit too long with Betances not being really available today, but he only gave up 1 earned, a home run to Logan Morrison in the 8th inning, but the changeup was big, and the fastball was around 95 all day. So as we love to note, his stuff was great today.
His stuff was great. He was hitting high in that radar gun. He looked good. He looked composed, and he had 11 Ks, right? 11 Ks today.
Yeah,
and obviously
Ks.
We know he's a strikeout pitcher. We know that slider is his strikeout pitch, but as you said, that changeup was working well. It was a good compliment today. Pineda looked, after a really subpar start last week in his first outing, starts the Yankees off today and looked fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Yankees fans were cheering him on today as they had a big crowd in the Bronx. But one person they weren't cheering on today was Gary Sanchez, as he was hurt in the weekend series against Baltimore. It came out today that he's going to miss 4 weeks with a grade 1 bicep strain. He was at the plate. He swung at a pitch, and I don't know if the pitch kind of hit the top of his bicep or if it was on the follow-through, but that's what it is. 4 weeks without Yo Soy Gary.
I don't know if I rewatched it. I don't remember seeing the ball physically hit his bicep. I think it was just the motion. I could be wrong, but from my perspective, I thought it was just the motion. But yeah, he was placed on the 10-day DL. I thought, he would fulfill his time out in the 10-day DL, come back, get ready for some baseball action within the coming week. But I guess after the doctors went through the MRI, they found that, this grade 1 strain, as they called it. It was funny, actually, in the post-game interview, reporters were asking Girardi, what was the technical name for it, and Girardi was like, it's the muscle behind the bicep, I don't know. And then they had the Yankee trainer come out and actually spell it out for all the reporters, which I thought was funny. But so out 4 weeks, he'll come back, I think David Cohen said, it may be a blessing in disguise. for Yankee fans and for Gary Sanchez himself. What do you think?
Yeah, it may be, but I think it's more of a blow right now. It's the beginning of the year, the hype surrounding him, and he didn't start off to a great start, but I thought he was starting to hit the ball better in Baltimore than what he did in Tampa Bay. He had a home run, I believe, Friday night, so he was starting to come around more, but it's putting pressure on the other Yankees in the lineup now.
Yeah.
Not having him in the lineup is definitely a huge hole. You're going to see Austin Romine start almost every day with Kyle Higashioka. I can't even pronounce his last name. Yeah,
something like
around that.
Yeah.
He came up from AAA. So those two will be, catching and hitting towards the bottom of the order. So, it could be a blessing in disguise, but I don't know how, because, with Sanchez projecting to be the best power hitter in the lineup for the year, I don't know how any time of his being missed is, really a blessing.
So yeah, with 8 runs today that came across the plate for the Yankees, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of different aspects of this team that performed really well that we can get into. And you were just talking about Gary being maybe the biggest bat, a lot of pop in that lineup. Another guy who we've talked about and that has a lot of pop in his bat, Mr. Aaron Judge. The Judge out in right field went deep yet again today, and second home run of the year. I think it was a hanging curveball, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Cobb hung one in there, and Judge definitely punished it. One big thing with Judge that I really liked so far. I mean, the power's been there, but in Tampa, besides Game 1, he kind of looked a little lost at times at the plate, and even Friday night in Baltimore, he kind of looked lost. But then Girardi sat him Saturday, and then today, being Monday, and yesterday, Sunday, he hit a home run. So I think the day off really helped Judge kind of regroup and, take some pressure off of him.
Right. So would you say it's more of a a mental thing, or would you say it was a physical thing coming out of spring training, playing so much? Would you say that just the day off, maybe to get his mind right, to get his mind off of those disappointing games he's had in the past couple days, or would you say? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was more mental because, we talked at length that in the preseason he hit like over 340 or around 340. So, obviously he was hitting the ball well in spring training. It's just, when the regular season starts, there's pressure on you to produce. And, he had a good first game, but, after that he kind of disappeared a little bit. So I think just, getting a mental day, he kind of regrouped, and, yesterday and today he looked good at the plate. He had a big line drive. It was only a single because he hit it so hard yesterday as well, along with the home run. So he's shown some good signs from the plate. He's definitely going to strike out, though. We know that.
Right, and he's going to strike out, but he's shown that he's not just committed to being a power hitter. He's trying to hit for contact as well, as we tried to, as we thought he would, or we thought that the Yankees hitting staff would try and get him to do, especially early on in the season. But so we've talked about Judge, the starting right fielder. The other two starting outfielders, who we discussed in length before, who we decided that we didn't want to see bat back to back, as we have seen in years past, Mr. Brett Gardner and Mr. Jacoby Ellsbury, coming up big for the New York Yankees today. What'd you think of them?
Yeah, Ellsbury's shown some good signs so far this season. It's early, but he had a home run in Tampa. He's hit some, I believe, some doubles in the gap. I know he had one today.
Right.
And Gardner's been pretty solid in the leadoff role. He had a big Baltimore series, and he played pretty well today as well. And yeah, like we said, we didn't really. Coming into the year, Girardi didn't want them hitting next to each other in the lineup, and we kind of talked about it and said it made a lot of sense for Sanchez or someone to hit, in the 2 spot. And now with the Sanchez injury, Ellsbury and Gardner are back hitting at the top of the order. So how do you think that plays out?
I think it plays out if they can continue their production that they've had today. I think it plays out just fine for the time being. When Sanchez comes back, they'll probably slide him back into that 2 or 3. Obviously, when Didi comes back, he might be a contender to be up there at some point as well. But for now, as long as they continue the production that they've had, I don't see anything wrong with it. One thing that I've really taken away from especially Gardner's play today, even though Ellsbury kind of has had the better, not only today, but past few games. He started off the season better, in my opinion. But one thing that I'm really, really liking from Gardner is that he may not hit the ball on the screws like the way he wants to every time, but today he took advantage. I think he had a soft ground ball that kind of got misplayed, and I believe it was an error, but then he stole second and then ended up stealing third. So
yeah, that was a big part coming into the season that Girardi told Ellsbury and Gardner that they need to be more aggressive on the base paths, and they wanted to be more aggressive on the base paths, and it's shown with Gardner as he already has 5 stolen bases on the year.
Leads the league.
We're a week into the season. He has 5 stolen bags. Obviously, they showed, I think, the past 4 years he's been stealing at 80%, and so obviously that's a pretty solid rate. So if he can keep that up, that definitely helps the top of the order, especially when Sanchez comes back and you have guys like Matt Holliday hitting well. If they're already in scoring position, the Yankees lineup can drive in a lot more runs that way.
Yeah, and talking about runs, Girardi said in the post game press conference that he went up to Gardner at the end of spring training after the last spring training game, and before they were getting on the plane to go back, he said I read more about it. He pulled Gardner aside and said his role this year, he wanted Gardner to bring across 100 runs. He wanted Gardner to have 100 runs, and I actually it kind of piqued my interest a little bit. So I went back and looked at Gardner's career stats. He's never actually had 100 runs. The closest he's come is 2015 with 94. Actually, in 2010 he had 97. But he's never gone above 97, although he's hovered around that number.
Right, and one thing to look at with the lineup, with Sanchez being out right now, is you have 2 lefties at the top. And Greg Bird was hitting third when Sanchez was healthy, but I think Matt Holliday is going to stick in the third spot because you don't really want 3 lefties in a row. So do you think Bird now moves into the cleanup spot even though he hasn't been playing that well?
Yeah, I would have to say that, Girardi doesn't want to go back to back to back lefties. So I would say that Holliday in the 3 spot, and Holliday is somebody who can be in that 3 spot. So it makes sense. I would be fine with Bird in the 4 spot. Although, days where we may see a let's say Holliday starts in the outfield one day for an off day for whomever, it doesn't really matter. I would be fine seeing Gardner, Jacoby, Holliday in the 3 spot, and then Chris Carter at DH instead of Holliday, and then Bird at the 5 spot. That'd be fine with me.
Sure. I think one thing to watch though, because we didn't mention it, but Bird had a minor foot injury and he caught the flu, so he set out the last 3 games. But one thing to watch going forward is, I don't think they want to put too much pressure on Bird. They had him in the 3 spot, so the 4 spot isn't much different, but still it's, the title of the cleanup hitter. So one guy we haven't talked about yet is Chase Headley. So if Headley continues this tear, I think maybe, it's scary, but maybe he could move into the 4 spot and put Bird into the 5 spot just to give, put some pressure off of Bird if he's not producing.
Yeah, I usually in this case scenario, I would say don't blaspheme Jared, but Headley's shown that he's started the season off really strong, so I kind of can't argue with you there. And I can't say anything really bad about Headley thus far. He's played very well, and so
hey, we need to send Chase Headley a fruit basket or something because he was the first player of the year to go homer over the short porch. So
that's right.
Chase Headley is our mascot right now.
Chase Headley is our mascot. He is the face of the Short Porch Podcast. How about that? Chase Headley, the face of the Short Porch Podcast. That's fantastic.
he's hitting 375 right now. We talked a little bit last time about him beating the shift. He hasn't even had to do that lately. He's just been flat out raking kind of, and it's a little scary for Yankee fans. I don't know how to react to it. I'm used to saying Chase Headley's name with some explicitives in there, but so far so good for Chase.
Listen, I have to apologize on air to Chase Headley because ever since a certain someone that shouldn't be named, well, I guess I have to name it for the listening audience. There was a certain New York Yankee that was a member of our team that is no longer on our team. Thank whatever deity you believe in. But there was a certain second baseman for the New York Yankees a few years ago. He went by the name of Stephen Drew, and
he did.
and if obviously for all you listeners that don't know, I really despise. I'm a New York Knicks fan as I live in New York, but I very much despise a certain man named Carmelo Anthony. However, there was two at the time, 2 years ago. There were two most hated athletes ever by me, and they were both on teams that I loved. One of them was Carmelo Anthony. The other was Stephen Drew. If I could throw both of them out of a plane, duct taped together at the same time, I think my life would have been perfect. But now, ever since he left, Chase Headley's always been on my shit list. I have to take that back and apologize now to you, Mr. Chase Headley.
Yeah, I might have to send some apologies to him as well, but it's still early in the season, so I'm a little skeptical right now. But one guy we've saved for last to talk about in this lineup. It's ninth, but boy does he bring a stick, and that's Ronald Torreyes. He's leading the team. Sorry, he's leading the team in RBIs with 8. He's hitting 250, which doesn't sound that great, but man, he's been raking out of the 9 spot right now. He homered in Tampa. I mean, what do you have to say about the man they call Toe?
See, this is quite the conundrum here, because they refer to him as Toe, and he is a small man. Therefore, you could call him Little Toe. But fortunately for him, he's been playing like the big toe as of recently, and he has been raking the ball, as you said. You almost said leading the league. That would have been incorrect. Right. However, he is leading the New York Yankees in RBIs. He's got to be no more than 5'5", right? 5'5", maybe 100.
He doesn't even get over Aaron Judge's shoulders.
No. He's 5'5" in cleats maybe, and he's 155 pounds soaking wet with like 10-pound weights on his ankles. So that man is performing to the best of his ability right now. He is coming in the clutch, especially with all these guys that are injured, with Didi hurt and Bird's been out the past few games. Sanchez now hurt. We're looking to him for some production, and he is coming through.
Yeah, you said he's playing like the big toe. He's wearing 74. He's swinging the big stick. He has 2 homers on the year. He hit the first homer of the Yankee year. So,
Who would have bet on that?
There's not much more people can expect from him at the plate. My only problem with him is the range he provides at shortstop. As Yankee fans are used to Jeter and then Didi providing, range in the hole. Torreyes doesn't quite have it, as you mentioned his stature, but at the plate, I don't think anyone can complain right now.
Yeah, and another very odd thing that we haven't brought up yet. So it was kind of like a wacky day for the Yankees. A lot of things that I guess just went right for the Yankees. I think in the 8th inning. In the 8th inning, Tampa just made a whole bunch of defensive errors, just really, really off. I don't know what the deal was. Alex Cobb, that's his first name, right? Alex Cobb?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Alex Cobb pitched a lot better than his stat line portrays. But, going into the 8th inning, Rays made a whole bunch of errors. But one thing that really stood out to me, I don't remember if it was the 8th inning or maybe the inning before. Who would you have guessed? I don't know if is this the first triple of the year for the New York Yankees?
Chris Carter?
Chris Carter with the first triple of the year for the New York Pinstripe Yankees? Really? The New York Baseball Yankees.
Yeah, I believe that was the first triple, and he kind of watched it thinking it was going out of the park because he's so accustomed to seeing that, but it went off the top of the wall, kind of rolled back, and Chris Carter had a triple next to his name.
Yeah, that's something you probably won't see too many more times this year, Yankee fans, so cherish it, relish it.
No, and honestly, besides that triple, he hasn't looked that great at the plate. But, I mean, it's very early, and, Yankee fans know that he's there for the pop, nothing really else. The average won't be that great, but hopefully he can start hitting him out, especially if Bird doesn't come back soon. But I think Bird should be playing tomorrow at Wednesday at the latest.
Yeah, with the Girardi said it's more of the flu than it is the foot, but
Right.
what and there's I mean, I guess you could call it an epidemic. Just you know, a lot of cases of the flu in the MLB over the past week. They've been talking about a lot. Baltimore's club has gone through it.
They've
Tampa,
had it.
yeah.
Boston
had it. Yeah.
Which, I mean, it doesn't apply for the Boston side, but, But, yeah, just one thing, though, kind of wrapping up the lineups a little bit. Just one thing that was definitely an issue last year and, really looked like an issue this year in the first week is hitting with runners in scoring position. I think it was yesterday's game in Baltimore. I think Wade Miley pitched like 7 innings and walked 7 batters, and the Yankees did not have a run. And I think they walked a total of 9 batters, and they had to come back and claw and fight to win that game. So that's definitely something to watch going forward, hitting with runners in scoring position.
For sure. And, we talked about the effectiveness of some of these guys that are stepping up, like Headley and Torres, in the absence of some of our everyday starters. But what are you going to foresee with guys, like Kyle Higashioka, please tell me I pronounced that correctly, with guys like him, even Romine now, who's going to be in the everyday lineup, guys like that who you didn't even expect to play very much in the first month, and they're going to be forced into these everyday roles now, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the same could be said for Torres at the start of the year before Didi got hurt. So right. He's making the most out of it. Romine and I'm just gonna call him Kyle because I can't even pronounce his name. They'll have their shot. But another guy who is in the same boat is kind of Aaron Hicks, and I thought he played well in his 2 starts over the weekend. He had a big double, and obviously he has great defense. But yeah, basically those guys, they just have to make the most out of the opportunity they have. I thought Romine obviously called an excellent game behind the plate. I don't think it's the defense that anyone's worried about with Romine. It's just what can you bring to the offense. And he's in the past he's looked good at times at the plate. I don't think it's gonna be hard for him to hit like a 250-ish maybe, but I think the Yanks would take that.
So can I just bring something up real quick? The broadcasting team today was Michael Kay, John Flaherty, and David Cohn.
Correct.
And so at some point in the later innings of the game, I don't remember whether it was David Cohn or John Flaherty. It's just slipping my mind right now. But one of them equated the outing that Pineda had today, albeit a very, very, very good outing that every Yankee fan would take every time out of him if they could, equated that to the perfect game of slipping me right now.
David Wells?
David Wells. I was just about to say that. David Wells. Right. He equated that to the perfect game of David Wells, saying that David Wells, good pitcher. Once he had that perfect game, though, the rest of his season was kind of transformed because I guess, as they said, he had his confidence in all of his pitches, and it kind of transformed him as a player. All right. Kind of a stretch to me. All right. He had a perfect game through 6 2/3. But yeah, listen, I don't think Pineda's coming out with his fucking Superman cape on next time. Like, I think they need to. I think the broadcasting team needs to relax on that.
I think they got caught up because they were talking about Cohn's perfect game. They were talking about Wells' perfect game. Maybe they were just thinking Pineda's gonna finish this deal off and get it. Yeah, obviously Pineda's probably just going to go out there next time and give up fucking 6 runs in the 2 innings and have a seat, next to Larry Rothschild. But, yeah, it was good to see, and if that changeup can be consistent and, be the third pitch, then, yeah, maybe this is something we can look forward to more often. But obviously, Pineda has shown this in the past. I mean, he had a 16 strikeout game before. So when he's dealing, he's dealing, and when he's not, we've seen it all before. And I mean, I hope going forward the changeup is consistently working for him. I think if he can do that, I think Pineda will be closer to the pitcher we expect him to be.
All right, I thought you were gonna say in Cy Young contention for a second.
Well, I mean, he basically launched the campaign today. I mean that.
But yeah.
But as you're on the rotation, let's just dig into that, what we've seen over the past week, and what to look forward to. But with that being said, some news broke after today's game, and that is my boy Jordan Montgomery snatching up the 5th spot in the rotation. Girardi announced that. I think he pitches for Scranton tomorrow, actually. So that'll be his final tune-up before making his big league debut. What's kind of your take on that?
He kind of snatched the 5th spot away from my boy Chad Green, but it's okay. I forgive him because Jordan Montgomery, as we said, it looks very promising. What has he had? 2 starts thus far? I think he
was in Tampa because of weather concerns.
Yeah, he was.
So he was in single A, and I'm not sure. I think he started and Green came in relief, and then I think the same thing's happening tomorrow. Actually, Green's going to come in relief for Montgomery, but yeah, I think he's had 1 start, maybe 2. I'm not positive on that. Tomorrow might be his second one, but I'm not sure.
I know, looking at the last start he had, if it was the only start, I'm not certain of right now. We're not certain of, but the last start, he had a good line. I think he only had 1 earned and didn't walk.
It might have been unearned actually. It might have been 1 run, I think, and then he had 8 Ks in 5 innings or something.
Yeah, that's right.
With a low pitch count, so. Yeah, he looked good in his minor league start. He looked good down the stretch in spring. As we said, he's a big lefty, so I think that helps because it gives us another lefty in the rotation with CC.
Right.
And, I'm all for it. Obviously, Green or Sessa can come up if Montgomery doesn't do the job, but why not throw him out there?
I'm sorry, I just thought of something when you brought up CC's name. I was at a game last year, and I don't know the last time you were at the stadium, but they have a lot of the fans wait after the game at I don't know if it's the south entrance or the south gate, whatever, but it's the River Avenue gate, and it's the one that goes right under the train on the overpass. It's
right.
It's the entrance to River Avenue for the stadium, and that's where all the players come out after they've showered, changed, whatever. But there's just this really tall. I was just passing there because I was in the parking garage across the street from River Avenue. So I'm about to cross the street. So I'm walking past the big crowd, and we kind of stayed a little bit after. So a crowd kind of formed around that entrance, and these big black town cars started coming out of the gate, and all these fans are waiting there trying to maybe cop a signature, maybe a picture here or there, just say what's up to their favorite Yankee. And this really tall African American male with dreadlocks comes walking out of, just literally not in a car, just comes walking out with a backpack, and a Louis Vuitton backpack, just comes walking out of the entrance, and randomly some random fan just screams, "CC, can I get a picture? CC, can I get a picture?" And the guy just looked at him and started cracking up, and I couldn't stop laughing. It was one of the funniest moments in my young Yankee fandom life. But
I was actually at the stadium last year for a CC start, and that was the last time I was there. But the Yankees did not win a match. Go figure. But yeah, no, that's a great story. But I mean, if we're gonna talk about CC, he's made 2 starts so far. He had the first win for the Yanks of the season in Tampa. He pitched 5 scoreless in that game. Probably could have went deeper into the game, but Joe was itching to go to the bullpen. So
as usual.
As always. So what have you kind of seen from CC so far?
More of the same from last year. Last year he kind of rebounded from his years prior where he started to decline a little bit. And it was funny because in the past few years, following his the beginning of his gradual decline, he's getting older. He's a lot of wear on that arm, a lot of innings pitched. But as we said, he rebounded last year. But there was always constant talk about his weight. Should he drop weight? So he dropped a couple pounds before 2 years ago, and then they found that wasn't the issue because he pitched poorly, and then he put the weight back on, blah, blah, blah. But last year he rebounded, and I'm seeing more of the same this year. He's working his pitches. He's a lot of he's not a strikeout pitcher anymore, and I think he knows that. And he's been working his stuff really well. And as you said, 5 scoreless in this first outing, and the first one for the Yankees this year. He's going to continue to look really good as long as Joe doesn't stretch him out too much. Obviously, Joe likes to go to the bullpen early. I would like to see him pitch around 6 and 2/3 almost every time. But I like what I'm seeing out of CC. What about you?
Yeah, he went 6 in his start against Baltimore. He gave up 2 earned. I mean, he pitched pretty well. It wasn't a bad start by any means. But the one thing with CC so far is the development of his cutter. He brought this kind of new pitch in to, help with the decline of his fastball and kind of just add something to the mix to kind of keep hitters more off balance. And one thing that's been a trend so far is, especially to right-handed hitters, he's throwing that cutter and the fastball inside, trying to jam guys, and he's putting the soft stuff, that, little slider or curveball outside, just a backdoor kind of pitch. And that worked really well in Tampa. Baltimore, he was getting ground balls. And, I think the cutter's a big part of what he can, do this year. If he can get a good feel for that pitch and be consistent with it, I think CC can have, be not necessarily like an innings eater, but definitely provide stability to the rotation. Right. And, I know he's worked with Andy Pettit and Larry Rothschild a lot, just trying to get that pitch where he feels comfortable. And, obviously he still has the changeup that's, when it's on, it's cooking. So I think CC can, be dependable for the Yankees this season.
Right. So now we've kind of got every starter for us. We've had this blank slate for the past week or so, or past 2 weeks going back into spring training. Who was that 5th starter? Now we finally have it. Jordan Montgomery fills out that last rotational spot. Tanaka, Pineda, and CC at the top 3, and then Severino, who looked pretty solid, and then now we have Jordan Montgomery, and they made the decision to start Montgomery on Wednesday and push Severino back and all the pitchers back a day on their rotational schedule. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's probably a smart move because Severino through Friday night, they didn't have the off day. Mm-hmm. You know what? Like they came right into this series Monday, so that makes sense. We can get into Severino and Tanaka a little bit before we kind of finish up the rotation, but yeah, that makes the most sense. So Severino will pitch against St. Louis then, I take it?
On Thursday?
Thursday or Friday?
No, Thursday. Thursday we're still against the Rays.
All right, do we have off tomorrow? Or
yeah, I believe we have off tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah,
That makes sense then.
Yeah, Thursday's the last game of the series.
Regardless, I mean, it doesn't matter too much. I don't think, to me, like just kind of putting him in wherever. But I mean, yeah. So going then back to Tanaka, we talked last time about his first start. He really didn't have his command, and that was more of the same really Saturday against the Orioles.
Right.
I think his stuff looked a lot better. The splitter was working. He had pitches moving, and he looked really good at times. But he walked. He walked some guys. He hit 2 batters, and he had like 3 all last year. So the command is really the issue right now. I think his pitches showed a lot better movement. But what'd you kind of see from Tanaka?
No, I think you hit it right on the head. He's been very erratic. I think that's the word that I'm going to use here. He's been very erratic with his pitching for someone who's very control oriented when it comes to being
right.
a very good control pitcher. As you said, you coined the term the finesse god. He has
really is.
Right, but he's lacking that a little bit. As I said, he's been erratic in these first 2 starts, and he's good enough of a pitcher that we can rely on him for at least a decent or a controlled outing, I'll say. A controlled outing because he can make up for it with other things, but his main weapon in his arsenal is his control. And to hit 2 batters in the last game that he's pitched and the first game to look as atrocious as he did, he's got to turn it around. I'm sure he's working diligently to do so, but he's got to work his pitches. He's got to work his pitches smarter, not keep it up in the zone as we've seen. And yeah, I would say that's my observation thus far on Tanaka.
Yeah, one thing though, I think in the 5th inning, that was that might have been his last inning. I can't remember if he went 4 2/3 or 5 2/3, but he hit 98 on the radar gun, and that.
Yeah, I saw you tweet to, what is it, Jack Curry?
Jack Curry, yeah, because that raised my eyebrows. I was like, whoa, what? He had 98? I mean, I know they do say he saves a lot when he pitches, but
I don't know about that much.
I mean, he can hit 98. I don't know that. that kind of threw me off.
It's kind of surprising, and they just came out with the official or story, whatever, that they synced all of the MLB guns together for the start of the season. So like now there's no
right.
Yeah, you know,
yeah.
There's no.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know the term I'm looking
there's
for.
There's no like bias. There's no like bias.
Right.
Like
yeah.
home team bias. Like and plus they were on the road, so like yeah, that was interesting, but yeah, definitely he needs to get his command in order. But I mean, it was a shame because he looked good, and I mean, okay, so he's lasted 7 2/3 in both, or in combined in both starts. He has 8 strikeouts, so the strikeouts are there. But he has 6 walks. He's given up 2 home runs. You know, he needs to command his pitches and get deeper into the game.
I would have to agree with you there.
So then that brings us to our guy Luis Severino, who took the mound Friday night in Baltimore. And what did you see from him?
You know, I like what I'm seeing from Luis Severino. He's as we just talked about, Tanaka going rearing back and throwing 98. Another guy who could put fire on that ball is Luis Severino, and I will actually be seeing Severino on Thursday because I will be at the game on Thursday. He will be starting on Thursday because they pushed him back from Wednesday, which we will see Jordan Montgomery. But I'm very excited to see him, and I'm very excited to see him in person. I hope that we get a good outing out of him, and I would like to see him, as you said, you know, 2 different pitchers between Tanaka and Severino we're talking about, respectively. But 2 different pitchers. I hope that Severino could take a little bit of what Tanaka offers and his most valuable weapon, which is his control. We've seen him, he fiddled with, or he not tampered. We've seen a small amount of good control from him in this last game. You know, there's not all the time, but I hope to see some good control, and I hope to see a good amount of strikeouts because that's when he's at his best. Yeah.
You know, the start Friday night, he really showed the stuff that we always talk about, and it was a cold night at the ballpark, so it wasn't like, you know, pitchers can be thrown off by cold weather. You know, maybe the breaking pitches don't cut as much or break as much, you know, and that can really play a factor. But that had no impact on Severino's outing. He was lighting up the radar gun. The slider was dirty all night. He struck out 6 in 5 innings, and you know, he got killed by a Machado home run that kind of let Baltimore back in the game. But the first 2 at-bats, he struck out Machado. So he had a lot of good in that outing to kind of take away from. You know, he only went 5 innings, but I think he was at like 89 pitches. But, you know, in the first inning, I think Headley had an error which could have ended the inning. And you know, in the past, we've seen Severino just implode, you know, whether it be 2 outs or not. And he settled down, got the last out without any more damage done. So I thought that was a big point, you know, for him to do early. And that was a problem with Mike Pineda's first start in Tampa, you know, 2 outs. They can't get the final out, and runs just keep tacking on the board.
Right. He kind of has a little bit of that Pineda syndrome.
Yeah, and which was not apparent today for Mike Pineda. But,
no.
I mean, you know, the problem is, really, the problem with those 2 pitchers are they leave the ball over the plate too much. And Severino really didn't show that too much in his only start so far. But there was a little, I wouldn't say argument, but just like maybe disagreement with the pitch that he threw to Machado, that Machado hit out of the park. And after the game, I think Severino was quoted saying, like, you know, that was a good pitch. I tip my hat off to Machado for, you know, hitting it out, like that was a good pitch. And Girardi kind of said, I don't think that was a good pitch, or, you know, whatever. And then the next day, I think Girardi came in and said, well, it wasn't a bad pitch, but, you know, he gave him like a fastball in on the hands, kind of waist level, and Machado turned on it. So It's just the big problem with those two is, putting the ball over the plate too often. And I think Severino will have to continue to learn that and monitor that throughout the year, because when he falls in love with this stuff too much, that's when he gets into trouble.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. So now we've kind of covered basically everything that the rotation has to offer. We touched on each of the starting pitchers, and now, we kind of alluded to it before, but let's just get into just a little more detail about the Gary Sanchez injury, about that he's going to be out for the month, and just, what do we foresee other players, as we talked a little bit about Romine and Kyle, I'm not going to say his last name, but how is this going to affect wins and losses for the upcoming month?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will just go from the offensive perspective with Sanchez being out, but the defensive perspective is big as well, because it is his throwing arm. So he might be out. Maybe that's why he's out a little longer than expected, because, he has a great arm and he's a great defensive catcher. So, we're hurt in both aspects of the game. And, Romine's going to have to step in. And I really think that Holiday and Bird are going to be pressured more in the middle of that lineup to kind of produce, as well as Headley staying this hot. So, I think it really falls on guys like that, and just to kind of keep the Yankees afloat while Sanchez is out. The good thing is it's very early in the season. It's not like down the stretch where they're in it, they're out of it. It's early, so however the Yankees play without him, they have tons of time to recover. And who knows, maybe the Yankees can kind of flirt around 500 without him.
Right, and I think the point that you brought up was very important, that, a catcher like Gary Sanchez, his defense is invaluable to his importance to a team, especially now that we're going to see it now that he's on the DL. He'll be out for a month, but, he's very valuable because he can bring that power to the lineup. He brings total offense to a lineup, and as long as he keeps that average up there, like I predicted he would, and I hope he does when he comes back. He's of the utmost importance to this Yankee lineup, and yeah, it's I remember Cone. I think it was Cone in the game was talking about a lot of people, frantically worrying. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter talking a whole bunch of shit about the Yankees, like, oh, Girardi needs to go now. They need to fire him now. Cashman needs to get rid of him. This team doesn't know what they're doing. Listen, I think what Cohen said today, although, I'm not going to compare the two teams, but what he said today was, I think, a good point. He said, the 98 Yankees started off 1-4, and a lot of people were worrying then. A lot of panic was setting in. Listen, as I said, I don't have high expectations for this season, but I don't think starting off 1-4 is, it's going to determine the rest of the season.
Yeah. He went on to say, he's not comparing this team to the 98 team, but just that, it's too early to tell. I mean, right. The Yankees are now, they've won 2 in a row, so they are 3-4 now. So, but yeah, the weekend didn't look that great, but then they got to 2-4. They got a win in Baltimore, and they're gonna be competitive. I don't think.
Yeah, they're gonna be competitive in the AL East. I think that they'll be in position, as you said in the last episode or two, will be in contention for that wild card spot, and I think a lot of that is due to the strength of our bullpen, which we could get into right now. As we talked about before, Girardi really loves to go to the bullpen from his starters. And what have you seen from guys like Chase and Shreve and other guys that we haven't talked about as much, with Dellin being out the past few days? What have you seen from this bullpen?
Yeah, well, just a quick note on Chase and Shreve. With Montgomery coming up, he will be the one going to Scranton. So
pack your bags.
The pack your bags. The frequent flyer miles have begun. And but no, Shreve looked fine when he was up, but I think that's just saying that he was the last guy to make the team. And another part of that would definitely be with Jonathan Holder. He's pitched 3 innings. I think he's made 4 appearances. He has 5 strikeouts because I mentioned, I think it was last episode. He's kind of a big strikeout guy, or at least was in the minors, and he's showing that up in the majors. He has given up 5 hits, but no runs. The Yankees the bullpen did not give up a run in the entire Tampa Bay series in Tampa. That changed a little bit in Baltimore, but yeah, I think guys and Adam Orange looked really, really, really good.
Adam Orange looked very good thus far.
I mean, he belongs in the bullpen. He looks perfect there.
What do you think?
He's pitched 6 perfect innings, 7 strikeouts. So, guys like Holder and Warren are big, and Brian Mitchell even are big when the starters aren't going long in games, which throughout the first turn in the rotation, no one really went long.
Right.
The past 2 days, CC's went 6 and Pineda's went 7 and 2/3. So they've gotten a little break, but before that, those guys have been huge in this first week and will continue to be huge if the starters can't go further in games.
Right, and usually relievers early in the season are used in an abundance, especially with managers that are bullpen happy, like we've seen Girardi to be. And 2 guys you didn't mention there. Tommy Lane, who we've talked about. As we both said, we're not huge Tommy Lane fans, but I like what I've seen out of him thus far for a Tommy Lane. And Clippard, who, Clippard, he gave up the lead the other day. It was against Baltimore, correct?
Yeah, it was I think it was the Friday night start.
Severino start.
I think there was an error, and then he gave up a home run to make it 6-5. And the Baltimore series, the bullpen has been the strength going into that series, and then Friday and Saturday night they kind of blew the game a little bit, which was hard to see after looking so good in Tampa Bay. But yeah, Clippard, that's his only blemish so far. He gave up a home run to Seth Smith. Clippard's good, but he makes me a little anxious at times.
Right.
I don't know about you. I mean, he's our 7th inning guy right now, but I think a guy like Warren could easily be that 7th inning guy, going like pitching 6th and 7th innings at times if Clippard continue. Like, Clippard hasn't looked bad, but if that's just a trend where he's a little shaky, I think Warren could do kind of slide into that role later in the year.
I think I don't take too much from the Seth Smith, giving up the Seth Smith home run. I think I think that obviously the Yankees, it's something to monitor. But I think Clippard's, he's looked good, and that's the only blemish, really, as you said.
Yeah, just to chime in, that's the only hit he's given up. But I think Machado hit a ball that was close to going out in maybe that game or the next day. I can't remember, but it's just he's a good relief pitcher, and it's just early. He's kind of shown that maybe the home run is what will hurt him at times.
Right, I think that's accurate. I mean, for now, I'm very comfortable with him staying in that 7th inning role. And,
absolutely.
And actually, my friends, I cannot take credit for this whatsoever. This is my friend Daniel. He came up to me the other day, and what was the game on Saturday? Yeah, the game on Saturday.
Tanaka's
starting.
The Royals.
Right, yeah. And he came up to me on Saturday, and he said, "Are you ready to see the CDC?" I was like, "The CDC? The fuck is the CDC? Like the Center for Disease One?" And he goes, the CDC, stopping the epidemic. We're controlling everything. And I said, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And he goes, "We control the epidemic after the starter comes out, the CDC. Clippard, Dellin, and Chapman." I'm like,
I love it. I love it.
I like it a lot.
That's great. Yeah, we haven't. I mean, let's just get into those 2 guys. Dellin and Chapman. There are the last 2 guys we really haven't talked about. There are big dogs, but Betances gave up. He gave up a run in Saturday's game, and he couldn't hold. Might have been Tommy Lane's batter or runner on. I can't remember, but Betances. I think he took the loss. Yeah, he took.
It was Holder, right, or no?
No, because Holder doesn't have any runs.
Yeah, that was the day before. Go ahead.
So I think, Betances took the loss on Saturday, but he looked a lot better in Sunday's outing. The curveball looked really, really good.
Yeah.
So nothing to really worry about there. The only thing to worry about really is his usage, and I was glad to see Joe not use him today, because that would have been 3 days in a row. And when it's this early in the season, I mean, it's just not a good look for the whole entire year. And Chapman's pitched 2 perfect innings. He was getting ready to come in for the save yesterday and today, and the Yankees poured on some runs, so they didn't have to bring out the Cuban Missile.
I love it. Yeah, that's right. And he, I don't remember if it was his first inning or his second inning. I think it was his first. And that legitimately stupid slider that he had.
Oh yeah. I forget who it was against, but that they had no chance.
It was against a lefty batter, so it was breaking away. And I remember, I don't know if it was like an official like MLB account or something, or just a reporter or something, or just a fan. I don't know, but someone put the video and said Chapman's throwing a fucking boomerang out there, because that's exactly what it looked like. It was ridiculous. He threw that and it broke so far out of the zone, and the guy looked like he was fucking swinging a pool noodle out there. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Chapman, I mean, especially when he has that slider going, anything off speed from the fastball, people are just gonna look stupid. But one thing, going back to CC, did you his first start in Tampa Bay? Did you see how drenched he was in sweat?
Yeah, they had to change his hat. Like, they kept saying that. Yeah,
he had to change his. Yeah, he had to change his hat. Like, come on, you're in a dome. Jeez, he's going bald this year.
This
man.
Yeah,
I was dying when I saw that. I was like, typical CC, just sweating his balls off out there, trying to get through 5 innings.
They kept showing him in the dugout, and like the camera kept flashing over to him. Every time he would go to the dugout after an inning pitched, he would just sit down. He'd be exhaling so hard. He would take off his hat. His head would look like the Niagara Falls, and he literally just sweat dripping everywhere.
I think Paul O'Neill was on the call that night, and he's like, that's weird. Like, I only changed my hat at All-Star break or something like that. And, like, so he only changed his hat once a year. And Paul O'Neill also didn't know that Fox Sports had the game on Wednesday, so he thought he was ready to show up to the ballpark to call the game on Wednesday, even though Yes wasn't calling it. Like, he went on for a half inning about how he was like, oh, I'm coming home tonight. I didn't know.
Yeah, they had I'm still shocked that they had literally a stack ready to go, a stack of new era Yankee caps ready to go for CC basically every half inning. It's fucking fantastic, but
yeah, that's gonna be something to watch. How many at this rate it's gonna be how many new hats he has compared to strikeouts, and I think the hats are in the lead.
The hats are definitely in the lead at the moment. I think he definitely had at least 5 or 6 new hats in the past his first start. It was crazy. It was definitely crazy. But we touched on CC a little bit, and his glands and the amount of perspiration that he has. I just want to touch on one more thing. I don't know if you have anything else you want to touch on, but I want to touch on one more thing. We talked about the bullpen, and we talked about Montgomery coming up. Now, with Montgomery coming up, you said, has it been official? And it's been official that Shreve's the one going down?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're telling me that we still get to see my man, Pete Kozma, staying in the Bronx with the New York Yankees? Is that what you're telling me?
That is exactly what I'm telling you.
I don't
think he's gonna move. I mean, he's kind of the infield utility guy right now. But what's your Pete Kozma prediction here?
This is my Pete Kozma prediction. My prediction is that, although I love Big Toe, and Big Toe has been playing fantastic, my prediction is that Starlin Castro, and I'm not wishing this on any Yankee, but this is how the season goes sometimes. I predict that Starlin Castro, he might he had the wrist thing the other day. He played through it, but he kind of fell oddly on his wrist. I think Starlin,
that scared me a little bit. Right. But then I saw a glimmer. I saw this little light shining, and it was Gleyber Torres, but the light went away quickly as Starlin got up and fielded his position.
So,
but keep going with Kozma, yeah.
So I don't wish this upon Starlin Castro. I like Starlin Castro. Had a nice home run today that kind of resembled the Derek Jeter home run with a fan. Kind of reached over. It wasn't that blatant, but
Right.
So I suspect that Starlin might have a little, like wrist injury or like ankle injury. Might put him on the 10-day DL, not a month DL like Gary Sanchez, just a 10-day DL, and then Pete Kozma just he'll scurry on out there to the infield, second base maybe to start 3 games, start a series. I believe Pete Kozma will overtake the starting second base position for the New York Yankees when Starlin Castro goes on the 10-day DL. You want to know why?
Why?
Do you want to know why? Because Pete Kozma is going to hit 3 home runs in a 3-game series. I'm calling it right here. Book it. Call your bookie. Bet it right now. Pete Kozma, starting second baseman for the New York Yankees. It's going to happen. I'm calling it right here on the Short Porch Podcast.
As wild of a prediction that is, I'm going to have to say it won't happen. I watched Pete Kozma take some hacks the other night. He came up 3 pitches, 3 strikes. He had a nice walk back to the bench. So I don't see that happening, and I don't want Starlin Castro to go on the DL. But if he does, I expect Gleyber Torres to be up quicker than we know it.
All I know is Cosmo's he's going to make a fool out of all you non-believers.
Hey, he's fine as a utility infielder, but I don't think I want to see, nor do any Yankee fans want to see the day that the middle infield is Ronald Torres and Pete Kozma, but I don't know.
I don't mind it, but I don't want to go into really prospect talk. I just want to shout out my boy. I just want to shout out my boy Miguel Andujar. The other day, had 5 hits in a game. I think he had 4 hits in a game, 5 RBIs. I talk about him a lot in spring training in the preseason. I like my boy Andujar. I hope to see him someday up in the Bronx.
Chase Headley's kind of blocking him off right now. But another prospect, just briefly, Dustin Fowler went deep the other day, so he could be in that 4th outfielder mix that we always talk about if there's an injury or some type. So just some guys to keep an eye out for. We might have more prospect talk for you in the next coming week or two. With just more games being played and more of a sample size for those guys to have, but yeah, just some quick notes there.
Right. So we'll have some prospect talk coming up in the next week or so. We'll usually have it every other week because at least as Jared said, there'll be enough of a sample size in a 2-week period where we can actually get into it and discuss it. But yeah, we'll also have some segments for you next week. I think next week maybe we'll continue with Jared's trivia of random Yankees. If you weren't here last week, Jared went 2 for 3, so he's currently batting .667 on the season. So not bad. He was only beat out. He was only ousted by a young Chase Headley last week. But sorry, I probably stole a trivia question of yours in the intro by naming off Zealous Wheeler. I know he was right up your alley, but. So the Yanks will finish their 3-game series with Tampa Bay before hosting the St. Louis Cardinals, a little interleague action over the weekend. So that'll be fun to get a look at an unfamiliar opponent. That's right, interleague matchup starting already this weekend, so we'll get to see that, and we'll get to see a whole bunch more the rest of this week. We'll finish up the series with the Rays, and then next week we'll be back on Tuesday, as we are every week, and you'll get more of your Yankees baseball fix. Anything else you want to throw in here?
I believe that's everything. Probably by next week we'll be back on hating Mike Pineda. The parade in the Bronx will have cleaned up, and we'll probably be saying why he'll never win a Cy Young.
Basically, yeah. So our love-hate relationship, mostly hate relationship with Michael Pineda. You could check back in on that next week. We will have some prospect talk for you next week. We will also have hopefully we'll have some Guess That Yankee for Jared. Maybe he could boost that average a little bit. And so for me and for Jared Peterman, I thank you once again for listening to the Short Porch Podcast. Again, we failed to mention, because we are absolute morons, that this is episode 4. And Jared, would you like to introduce, because as you said, last week, or the second episode was episode Jeter, then episode Ruth, and today would be
episode Gehrig.
Lou Gehrig.
And don't get it twisted with Lou Piniella, but yeah, Lou Gehrig, episode 4. I think that pretty much wraps everything up. Give a shout out to Ben Sound, and get ready for your day in the Bronx on Thursday.
All right, I honestly I will. I will be there. I will be paying my my $30 for a hot dog like usual. And I'll be ready. So, yeah, as you said, thank you once again, as always, to Ben Sound. Ben who? Ben what? Ben where? Ben Gamble? No, it's Ben Sound. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to the Short Porch Podcast. We will be back next Tuesday. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week and watching some great Yankees baseball. Have a good one.